The Guardians of the Galaxy movies stand out because they're funny, heartfelt, and feature a bunch of oddball characters in space. Unlike typical superhero movies, they focus on a diverse group led by the charismatic Star-Lord, who form an unexpected family. The film's use of classic tunes, colorful visuals, and clever jokes make them really stand out.
Well, I think it's part of what you talk about. I mean, first of all, I got to say I'm really proud of the movie. I think it's it's probably my favorite thing I've done, and I think that the fact that it was a culmination of the three movies really worked. It worked really well as a trilogy, and I think it's a little what you were talking about, that these characters, they're outsiders. Like, they're people who for whatever reason they don't have families in the traditional sense, really, any of them, and so they kind of make their family along the way, and it's something that I think that we can all really a lot of us can relate to that. Even people with traditional families, you relate to finding people that feel like they're part of your family, um, uh, as you kind of go through life, and these characters came to love one another, and I think the audiences came to love them too. And so I just really I think that there's something about feeling everybody feels like an outsider at some point, I think, and so I think there's something about these outsiders coming together that really sticks.
Yeah, and also you mentioned about the family aspect, right? And I feel like no matter
Mhm.
what the story is, because people have to remember, like, okay, it's a fantasy type of movie, right? Superheroes. It's obviously we don't necessarily relate to superheroes themselves with the powers and stuff, but it's the idea, it's the whole the meaning behind it, like the family you mentioned, right? Feeling like
Mhm.
outsiders, which those are themes that people can relate to. You look at a movie like The Godfather, for example, right? And I always talk about this movie because for me it's like the gold standard for film. Obviously,
Mhm.
it's such a classic. But that movie, it's like people think sometimes, oh, it's a mob movie, I can't relate to that, but it's not. It's about family. It's
Mhm.
about the corruption against Italian Americans in the film. It just, I don't know. I just think family is it can be a theme that everyone can relate to, and especially this movie alone. Like, that's important for me too.
Yeah, you don't need to, you can find your family amongst the people that you travel through life with. You can find them; they're there, and I think there's something uplifting about that. Which, particularly now, which I think is from my perspective, it's a little bit of a darker time in the world than it has been in a long time. There's a lot of there's a lot to be pessimistic or even afraid about as we go through the world. So the idea that we have, look, love still, it may sound hokey, but love still conquers all, and there's still, the idea that if we look out for one another and we take care of one another, that we can find our path in life.
When embodying Rocket through motion capture technology, diving into the character involves a mix of physicality, imagination, and observation. Wearing the green suit allows Sean to physically inhabit Rocket's movements, while studying his mannerisms from previous films helps him get into the character's mindset. It's about understanding Rocket's personality, quirks, and relationships within the story, so Sean can bring him to life in a way that feels real to both the character and the audience.
It's something I've been doing for a long time. Funny thing about the green suit is that the most famous pictures of me doing Rocket, I'm in the green suit because they're from the early on in the first movie. But I've done 6 movies as Rocket, and for five and a half of those, I'm actually wearing a tracksuit, not that green, not that green suit. It's just the pictures that everyone knows. I mean, that's that crazy skin tight green onesie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's we didn't know how Rocket was going to work when we started making the first movie. My brother knew that he trusted me as an actor, and he knew that he wanted me there on set to work with the other actors and to read the role so that I wasn't, so that they weren't talking to a tennis ball on a stick or just speaking to a blank space or something like that. And we just started rehearsals for that first movie, and I got down to a crouched position and started acting like an anthropomorphic raccoon, and it just worked. And we found that, first of all, as weird as it looked, the actors got used to it very, very quickly, so that it didn't look weird after a minute. And then it was just like, okay, we're going to relate to this person as though he's the character of Rocket. It gave Rocket a real sort of essence, and so that when they looked into Rocket's eyes, they actually saw a pair of eyes, which was really important. And the second thing that was really important is that the visual effects team saw the work that we were doing and said, hey, this is really helpful for us. When we see what he's doing, we see how he moves his hands and moves his head and where his facial expressions go. We can start to animate the character that way and know where he's moving and what he's doing. There's always a margin for error. They can always change things that I do if they need to because it's CGI. And as Bradley, of course, comes in and does like such magnificent work as a voice actor, if they want to add things from watching him perform, they can do that too. But I'm sort of there to kind of get the process from the first. It's like a baton, and it's like the James writes the script and he hands it off to me, and then I take the baton and I hand it off to the visual effects team, and then the visual effects team hands it off to Bradley, the anchor, and he kind of makes the whole thing work. And that's kind of how Rocket is sort of a character by committee. And in that way, I think he's a good microcosm for the whole sort of movies they get this whole community of people, this whole team of people coming to make something with love and care, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's been a crazy process.
Yeah, you know what? I never really understood how much goes into this, especially like all the behind the scenes, how many people are involved. You got to think like without you, without your brother, without the VFX team, without Bradley Cooper, if one of those people are missing, it just throws everything off.
Yeah.
You need that dynamic, and especially you need good people doing it, right? What I always talk about, because I'm sure you could tell, but I love like 80s movies and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even like back then, there's a lot of practical effects, and that's a whole thing on its own, right? A whole animal to tackle, because it's hard to make that to look realistic. But now with CGI, you gotta be careful because sometimes it could look cheesy, it can't look right. And I've seen movies where it doesn't work, but this movie, even the fact that they didn't even use real animals for it was all CGI. That like the passion that goes into these films, I think it's unmatched.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and yeah, I think it's really interesting what the VFX team is able to accomplish, and even how it's progressed in the 10 years since we made the first movie. And this movie also was a little bit different for Rocket, because in the past, the work that I did is actually technically called motion reference, because they're watching what I do and then animating from there.
Yeah.
But in the third movie, all like the young Rocket stuff is more traditional motion capture, where I'm actually wearing the suit with the balls and the numbers and the colors rather, and all that stuff. So that because we were able to, with the other actors who played Lila and Flora and Teefs, Linda Cardellini and Awesome and Michaela Hoover, we were all the same size, so I didn't have to like squat down. We could all be regular motion capture, and then we shot all of that stuff more traditional motion capture, which was just another piece of the puzzle. It's like you do what works, you do what suits the scene, you do what makes it work.
Absolutely, and I'm sure your back wasn't broken after, right? Because you said you didn't have to go on all fours all the time.
Exactly. It was easier. It's because Rocket's like for a lot of the movie, Rocket's either standing upright when he's young or he's laying down on his back. From a physical standpoint, it was the easiest of all the movies I've done with Rocket, which is good for me, because I'm getting up there, and I think I'm gonna have to retire from playing from doing the squatting. So
come on, you look great, man. Honestly, no, and you take care of yourself while you're in good shape. Come on, are you kidding me? But
that's right.
Your character Kraglin, I want to kind of move into that, because that character has evolved significantly from the first two installments of the franchise, and in this movie, it left the door open, I find, for that character, for more opportunities. I find him for hopefully like a spin-off or something. That'd be kind of interesting. Do you want to kind of dive more into this character too? You kind of want to leave it in the past now? Like, what are your thoughts with that?
I really don't know. I mean, I never, I've been asked a decent number of times if we're going to be seeing more of Kraglin in the future in the MCU, and my honest answer is I really have no idea. I have a lot of affection for the character, and I like playing him, but it would depend on a lot of things. I mean, obviously my brother's moved on and is doing the whole kind of DC thing now.
Hmm.
Um, but I can do whatever I want,
Yeah.
and we'll see if there's more to Craglin's story. I mean, obviously he's still around, so I think his story is probably not finished, but I kind of have no idea. You never know where things are going to go. I've certainly, it's been an honor to share his story with an audience for these past several movies, but yeah, we'll see.
Moving between TV and movies, like working on Gilmore Girls and Marvel movies, means adjusting to different styles and ways of working. TV often moves quicker with longer commitments to characters, while movies offer more time to dive deep into a role. For Sean, shifting between the two means adapting to these changes and embracing the unique aspects of each. It's about being flexible and bringing different skills to the table in both mediums.
For me, I've been acting more or less my whole life, and I went to acting school, and it's always been a part of sort of what I do. So on one hand, Kirk and Kraglin are the roles that everyone kind of knows me for, and those are the roles that everyone kind of knows me for, and along with a handful of others that people seem to know more. I mean, it's a little more frequently that people will have seen something else that I've done, or that I get Belko Experiment from time to time, or more people recently saw Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or Terminalist, or these things that I do where I pop up from here and there. But I don't know when I'm doing them the things that are gonna stick and be the ones that are super successful. So it's like, if you reverse engineer it, those are my two main roles. But in the time, I've done dozens and dozens of different types of. I'm a character actor, so I've done a lot of different types of work, and then those are the things that were parts of shows of stuff that everyone ended up seeing, that ended up being the big hits. So for me, I don't think of it too much as it being a big change going from Kirk to Kraglin. If anything, they're more similar than they are different, because yes, it's different working on television than it is in movies, but for my job as an actor, it's not that different. I'm taking this character and I'm trying to fully realize this character within the tone and within the script that it's written in, and that's my job. And it doesn't really matter what the overall piece is. That's going to remain the same throughout any piece of work that I pick up. So yeah, those are I think those are the things I'm known for, because they were successful. But there's a bunch of other stuff that could have hit that just didn't.
Well, there's actually, I was actually on your Instagram actually last night. I was stalking a little bit.
Yeah, no worries.
And I went, there was a post you made about, I think I should have done my research on this one, but it was an Apple TV show, and the poster, you have a gun, and it's with Chris Pratt. Like, I think it was.
Oh yeah, no, it's Amazon actually. It's Amazon Prime.
Yes, yeah, that one. Yeah.
That was the Terminal List, which
the Terminal. Thank you. Yeah, you look badass in that.
Yeah, my character was not the nicest guy in the world, and it was I loved doing that. It's the kind of role that it's funny, you do comedy sometimes, and I did a lot of comedy early in my career, and then you just kind of get pegged as a comedy guy. But I was never I was never a stand-up. I was never an improv comedy guy or anything like that. I was just an actor who happened to land roles in comedy. I never really thought of myself as a comedian. And so for a long time it was like, oh, he's a comedy guy, isn't he? And it's like, no, I do whatever. I think of myself as having a wide range of types of roles that I could play. And I really appreciate, Chris Pratt, who I've worked with obviously a ton, and he's a friend and just a great dude. He had talked to me about playing this role in this show that he was producing, and I think it may have even taken a little arm twisting of Amazon. They're like, really, isn't he like more of kind of a comedy guy? And Chris is like, no, 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 he can do it. And fortunately they took a chance on me, and that was a really fun role. I'm looking forward to doing more of that type of stuff in my career. But yeah, no, that's a really cool project, by the way. You should check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Yeah, I just saw it on your page yesterday, and then I'm like, oh damn, I gotta check it out. So I'm actually, it's funny. I'm going after tonight, nice Friday night. I was gonna kick it off watching some of that, and then some other stuff
Nice.
too. But yeah, that's the thing why I think what separates you from other people too, because you look at, like, for example, you mentioned you did comedy, right? And you're very talented at that. There's other actors, like you look at Robin Williams, who I talk about all the time, who he was so great in comedy roles, but he can do serious stuff too. And if
Sure.
anything, in my opinion, I prefer his serious stuff over his comedic roles.
Hmm.
Goodwill Hunting, for example, like
Yeah.
it's like no other. So I do think that, yeah, I guess it's just the industry, but yeah, they sometimes have to take that chance. But someone like you who has the chops to say, look, I can do it. I can show a different side. That's what makes a good actor, and that's what separates you from other people. So yeah, definitely, I could definitely see that. And even, for example, like your other projects, I know there was an interview you did with your brother. I think it was a Wired Autocomplete interview you guys did
Uh-huh.
together. Yeah. And
Yeah,
you even
yeah,
said, you
sure.
talked about some like really good independent films you've done too. From like your earlier career, what has been, I guess, your most impactful film or project you've done that you find that you had the most fun on, or just something that you found that was something that stood out to you?
Oh gosh. I mean, everything I've done has these nuggets that you take something away from. I did this movie when I before I left Chicago. Even I had gone to school in Chicago, and did this tiny little movie called Stricken, that was not a successful movie, but I worked with my friend Judy Greer and Jamie Kennedy, who became a friend, such a good friend for a long time, and it was the thing that convinced me to move to LA. It was the thing that when I did it, I was like, oh, I need to be doing this. I need to go to Los Angeles and do it. There are other movies, Belko Experiment is a movie that we shot, and it's a sort of small horror film that I remember we shot for 5 or 6 weeks in Bogota, and it was just such a cool, fun group of people, and it was so much fun. We were killing each other during the day and salsa dancing at night, and that one sticks out. And I think that if you took any movie that I've done in my career, there's something about it that I try to carry with me. I just did this movie in Oklahoma City that I wrapped last week that I think is going to be really cool. It's interesting. We'll see how it turns out. But they're all different in their own. They all have these different flavors to them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
You know what? I like how you say that, man, because there's a lot of people who they may do a project that doesn't become a massive hit. Which, trust me, to make a massive hit, it's hard. It has to
Yeah.
appeal to it has to appeal to the audiences. It can be a good movie, but it just may not stick with some people. And it's funny, sometimes that happens, and then you watch, like, 20 years later, it becomes this cult classic. You see it all the
Hmm.
time with movies like that. But like, for example, like I can tell that you have fun no matter what on every set that you're on, whether it's a good movie, bad movie. At least you try to make the best out of it. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, you are. I do think that in general, like, with, with, within reason, when I'm performing a character, I need to be having fun on some level. So it's like, even if I'm crying, even if it's an emotional scene and I'm crying my eyes out, there's something about the experience of experiencing something real that has an element of fun to it. It's like, and so it's like you have to not if you don't know what you're doing, that's when it's not fun. And so I do sort of have a little bit of a rule of thumb that if I'm not having fun, then the audience probably isn't either. So like I got to find what makes it fun for me, and that's really true of just about anything that I do.
Well, I hope you're having fun on this interview too. I hope everyone, when they're watching, they go, "Ah, Sean's enjoying himself."
Yeah,
That's
for
the goal.
sure.
That's the goal.
It's always fun talking about myself. It's great.
Of course, no, man, because you're such an interesting guy. Honestly, you really are. That's why I like picking your brain at these things because there's things that people don't know about you that are interesting, right? Like it's and that those are things we can relate to. That's what makes movies interesting if we can relate to them. People, right? So what I also think is really cool how your relationship with your brother. How you guys have collaborated so much. And I love seeing
Hmm.
that siblings come together and work on stuff. Obviously, like I have an older brother, and him and I butt heads all the time when we try to work together. Is there a lot of that going on too within your brother when you guys collaborate, a lot of butting heads, or is it really an enjoyable experience? Is it just all good?
Believe it or not, we're much more likely to butt heads like in our personal lives when we're hanging out than we are on set when we're working on something. I mean, first of all, we just get along pretty like we just don't. We're not fighters. We have four siblings in between the two of us. So there's six kids in my family, and he's the oldest and I'm the youngest. So our dynamic is already very well established, and it's not too weird for me to have him as my boss when I'm on set. But I actually, I love collaborating with him because like not only are we friends and we get along and we're on the same page, but he's also just so good at his job, and it's great to work for somebody who knows exactly what they want and what they're doing. And it's even more so. It's even better for me because I know him so well that like I can tell, we can do a take and I can tell by the look on his face if he's happy or not happy with what we just did. And usually we're on the same page. And if something's not right, we'll talk it through. But usually we both know, what we're going for in a scene. He's really good at communicating to his actors what's going to happen in the scene that we're about to shoot, and it's just like, our jobs just mesh really well. So it's been a great collaboration. I don't i don't feel like I always need to work with him, but I also, when I can, why wouldn't I? So it's sort of like that.
Of course, yeah, and for him, he's doing so many good things. I know even he's working for with DC now, right? And
Yeah,
with this upcoming Superman film, I'm really excited for it. They just announced with who the new Superman's gonna be, and I'm really
yeah,
excited for that. So, are you a
yeah,
big
yeah, I
super?
heard those auditions were great. And we're also working on Creature Commandos together
Yeah,
right
Creature
now.
Commandos. Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was an animated show. That, oh man, I can't tell you how much I like it. It's like I really, I just, it's a very, very cool. Um, it's a pretty intense project. It's like it's animated, but it's got a lot of gravity to it for something animated, and I really look forward to introducing these characters to an audience and seeing how it pops, because I just think the scripts are absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, well, look at like for example, look like the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, for example, like the animated stuff. Just because it's animated, I find like they're giving it an edge to it, right? So, and
Hmm.
even with the Creature Commandos, I think that's going to be epic. I know I've read all about
Yeah,
that. I'm super excited. Is there anything else you could tell us about that? I mean, that you're allowed to say, like anything?
all I can tell you is that I'm reprising my role as Weasel that I started in the Suicide Squad. Surely my finest work. And but I also play another character named GI Robot, who hates Nazis. So I love that character because I also hate Nazis, as we all should.
Yep.
And and yeah, no, it's just a really cool group of actors. Frank Grillo and David Harbour and Indira Varma, and of course Viola Davis and Jennifer Holland, and uh, Steve Agee, and just all these really great actors. And I think some of the ideas that the actors actually resemble the characters that they play. So if it moves to, so that these characters can, conceivably then be moved to live action and be played by the same actors. Which is just a really, really cool thing. It's a great project.
Sean, I gotta say, this was a fantastic. I could talk to you for hours. Shit,
Yeah.
it sucks that I have to end it off, but yeah, it's been a blast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this today. We gotta stay in touch. You're great, and yeah,
I appreciate it.
yeah, we gotta do this again sometime. Honestly.
All right, man. Thanks. I'd be happy to. All
Thanks,
right.
man. Take it easy. Bye.
Thank you.